In a sandbox setting, it's hard to plan far ahead as the GM, because without rails, we don't know what roads the characters might take. I'm a huge proponent of doing less prep and only doing the prep that you find fun. But surely that means we can't do certain kinds of adventures that we know are absolute staples, like heists. Yes, we can, especially if we lean in to classic heist structure tropes with a group of characters who maybe have come together just for this job. Your players will be amazed by your GMing, a chance to overcome a real challenge, and you will be game mastering like magic. But first, memory lane. In Minneapolis, there is a convention called Convergence, a 4-day event covering science fiction and science fantasy in all forms of media, with a very strong gaming track. It's been running since 1999, and in 2002, the organisers invited me to speak on a role-playing game panel. It was called Out of the Dungeon, and was about leaving behind room-by-room crawls and transitioning to a more situational game, and how to, in a nutshell, wean players off of the murder hobo mindset. After the convention, I wrote an article on LiveJournal, I did say it was 2002, about how I approached writing adventures and prepping games. It was titled Situations Not Dungeons. I hadn't read anyone else's ideas or how-to pieces or blogs about situations versus plots at that point, but this was something I had evolved into as a game master. I don't think anyone was the first to come up with this. I think it's just something that people come around to as they mature as GMs. This was more than 20 years ago. But this idea has still to reach some people, which is one of the reasons why I've set up this channel, to pass on 40 years of GM experience. Videos come out every week, by the way. Subscribe now and look out the playlists for the ones you've missed. So let me nudge you towards it and explain why it's the best thing for any kind of heist or base siege. There's a lot of adventures where it's very tempting to write down what the players should do. Go here, meet this person, get this clue, make this roll. Succeed, do this, do that. And a heist is one of the quintessential formats where it seems we need to have railroad tracks laid down. It's like a puzzle. A puzzle is implied to have a solution, not solutions plural. We expect it to have a single unique solution. So maybe we want to sketch lightly some railroad tracks, work out how the players will break into the bank or infiltrate the villain's base or get past the blockade, and then gently herd the players towards that so they decide what to do. Have they spotted the weakness we've written in? We're going to lead them to it. We're going to sprinkle some... No, stop it. The key to situations rather than plots is that if you know more precisely what the characters are going to be broadly doing, where they're going to be going, you can more narrowly prep. If they're robbing a bank or rescuing someone from a villain's lair, then you can write the location, the layout, the staff list, their schedule, their policies, what they would be normally doing. But do not, and this is important, do not write into it an obvious way to solve it. Do not write a solution. Don't be ready to tell them there's air vents big enough to crawl through, or the CCTV cameras have blind spots, or all the goblins have a nap at noon. Write a functional, well-designed location that the villain or whoever designed it would be absolutely assured isn't going to cause them any problems, is not going to get raided. Remember, you, the game master, did not build this. Somebody in world built this, and they knew what they were doing. They were competent. What choices did they make? What flaws did they spot and fix? Next, when they ask for information, the players ask for information, give it to them. No, you missed the roll, you don't get the clue. No. If they miss rolls, maybe there's smaller details or wrinkles they missed, but tell them, well, you partially succeeded, so you get the broad information. If they fail, you say, well, you found out these things, but it's taken you longer than you thought. You'll have less time to get ready afterwards. Or, well, you failed the roll, so you managed to find someone who would give you this information, but you can't be sure the villain hasn't heard you're looking into this. Give them the information, but make the consequences be what's affected by the roll. Let them plan, and they might well surprise you with how quickly they come up with a scheme. It also might take a while, so sit back, answer questions, but unless it really drags, don't prompt them into hurrying. If you haven't got a solution pre-written, there's nothing to feel attached to or feel sad that they didn't have the same idea as you. It's easier to say yes if it's not competing with the key you've already sketched out in your head. And yes, you're going to have to wing it for a lot of this. But improvising from a well-written launchpad is a lot of fun. Now, a heist movie has a fairly standard structure, and we can use that for the beats of our story. The first thing it normally has is perfect timing. Something is happening, something is going on that means now, or a week on Tuesday, is the perfect time for the heist. There's a wedding, it's being refitted, someone is visiting, someone is leaving. Something is going on that means actually that's our window. That's when they've got to go for it. And you can use this to speed up the planning. Next, research, investigation, casing the joint, interviewing locals, finding out the original plans from the city hall for the building, talking to contractors who worked there before, asking adventurers who have survived what they saw inside the lair. All of this, very important. Give them the information, get them sorted, they've got their plan, off they go. It might seem that what your players want to then do is walk straight in, roll lots of successes, and walk straight out again with the treasure. But this isn't a dungeon crawl, this is a heist. And any movie where, at this point, everything goes according to plan and everyone drives off into the sunset, waving around bundles of cash, would be an extremely disappointing heist movie. Because the next part of the trope is the tilt. The tilt is the part of it where they thought something was going to go easy, and it turns out to be difficult. There's going to be something they've missed, and if they've got rolls that they've failed, you can tie it to one of those and use that. There'll be something that in their planning they didn't think of, or they assumed or dismissed. Don't write the tilt beforehand. It's okay to prep the timing. Give the event to them that means that there's the specific reason to go there, but don't write the tilt. Instead, watch for the missed rolls. Listen for questions that are unasked. Your players will inadvertently give you the tilt. If they don't, maybe one of their fundamental assumptions can be flawed, but don't decide beforehand. Decide in the moment. When you get there, the Count walks past you, his back to you, surrounded by guards. Oh no, the force fields have been upgraded. The contractor you spoke to, who was fired, he was fired because they'd done a bad job, and so they replaced them. Oh no. Something takes it all off kilter. It does not make it impossible, it makes it hard. And it leads to the next stage, which is the scramble. We've got the thing, but there's a tick, 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 tick countdown that we weren't expecting, we hadn't planned for. We've got to make a speedier getaway than we thought. Someone's coming home, or maybe it's an actual car chase. And finally, you can cut and say, okay, everyone had a rest, everyone gets their hit points back. It's a day later and you meet back up at your base. And it's time for them to count out the spoils argue about how that's being divided, and bask in a successful heist. Be a fan of the player characters. You want them to succeed, but you want to see them succeed despite hurdles, not without hurdles. With a heist, the temptation is to faintly sketch in those railroad tracks, but the way to make it memorable is to deliberately lean in to there not being any railroad tracks. Of course, one of the big problems in a sandbox is that player who says, "Oh, my character wouldn't do that," and wants to go off in a completely different direction, because they're not in any way connected to the group. But one of the heist tropes, Ocean's 11 and so on, is the team of experts whose skills don't overlap too much, who've been brought together for one big job. For my ideas on some great ways to make sure your party want to work together, watch this video next.